The 2018 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series. Brought to you from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. The Democratic race for Public Service Commission, District 5. Good afternoon. I'm Drew Dawson, GPB Augusta Station Manager and Midday News anchor and host on 88.5 GPB Atlanta and GPB's statewide network. Welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, originating from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting in Atlanta. This is the debate among Democratic candidates for the 5th District Public Service Commission. Now, for those of you who are not sure what the Public Service Commissioners do, when you turn on your lights, pick up the phone, and cook dinner, your public service commissioners determine the amount you pay for your electricity, telecommunications, and natural gas. Let's meet the candidates. They're in alphabetical order. First, Don Randolph is a healthcare advocate and consultant to nonprofit organizations. And Doug Stoner is a former state senator from Georgia. Now let's meet our panelists. Molly Samuel is a reporter with WABE 90.1 FM, and Christy Swartz is a reporter for E&D News covering utility and energy in the Southeast. Now let's get started. For rules on today's debate, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question by one of our panelists. Molly Samuel, you get the first question to Doug Stoner.
Senator Stoner, I couldn't find an active debate campaign website for you or a recently updated Twitter profile. How are you getting your campaign message out and letting people know what your platform is?
Well, actually, our campaign website is Doug Stoner for Georgia. It's forga.com, so it is there. I'm sorry you weren't able to find it, but I have a lot of folks who have found it. And we are actually out there communicating with people directly on Facebook and Instagram and other ways, and obviously going out and visiting folks around the state. As I mentioned before, I ran for state chairman at one time, and so I visited a lot of state committees, members around the state, and I'm still doing that. So we're getting the word out for sure.
Christy Swartz, you may now ask Don Randolph a question.
Ma'am, I noticed you mentioned a concern about cybersecurity on your website. This is a key issue for the electric utility industry. I was wondering what you were looking for from the electric company to ensure that the grid is safe.
Absolutely. Christy, that is a great question. When you think about getting up in the morning and your lights are turned off, or you think about what it means when you don't have electricity, is it because the grid power system is just not having the capacity? Or is there something else going on that's maybe a little more nefarious? So, Christy, I think that what I'm looking for in any electricity company, natural gas company, is the highest level of security, the highest level of integrity among their complete system so that nothing gets hacked. I'm really, really tired of the hacking that's happening to us as consumers. So we got to make sure that our grid is protected.
Well, that concludes the first portion of the debate. The candidates will now ask their opponent a question. Each will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and 30 seconds for a rebuttal. By random selection, Don Randolph, you may ask the first question.
Great. Thank you, Drew. I'm wondering, Senator Stoner, what do you think about the incredible report that just came out from Energy and Policy, which looked at the disclosures for all of the candidates for Public Service Commission, and our opponents on the Republican side took an incredible amount of money, over 70%, from the utility companies. So I've made the commitment not to take money from the utility companies, and I'm wondering if you would make that same commitment.
In the sense of what's going on the Republican side, Don, no shock there. That's always been the case. As it relates to my campaign, obviously I doubt I'm going to get very many donations from utility companies. Because obviously they've chosen who their candidate is in this race, and that is obviously the incumbent, the Republican incumbent. So, I doubt I'm going to have to deal with that issue in the sense of worrying about utility companies donating money to me.
And Doug Stoner, you may now ask your question.
Well, Don, if I'm fortunate enough to be the nominee for the Democratic Party for this particular position on the Public Service Commission, can I count on your support in the fall?
I think that we have to support each other. I do. I think that when you look at it, we need to support candidates that are going to help the Public Service Commission be better than it is now. So I look for the same from you. I hope that whoever prevails May 22nd, we can support each other and we can go forward to win in the general election.
And you can definitely count on that from me.
Great. Thank you.
I neglected to offer you a rebuttal, Don, to Mr. Stoner's question, and likewise in reverse. So if either one of you have a rebuttal to the answers that were given.
Actually, I think I'm great. Thank you, Drew.
I'm fine.
All right, very good. Well, for those just joining us, this is a debate between the Democratic candidates for the Georgia Public Service Commission, District 5. We will now go back to the panel to ask questions to the candidate of her choice until we're out of time for this portion. Now, as moderator, I may ask also a question from time to time, and I'll determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. Molly Samuel, you get the first question in this round.
Ms. Randolph, you're campaigning for using more renewable energy. What would you like the energy mix in Georgia to be, and how would you achieve that if you were, say, the only Democrat on the 5-member commission?
Thank you so much, Molly. Actually, I've worked on the climate change bills and the farm bills at the federal level, so we could do so much more with biomass, and that would be an incredible thing to increase. Georgia has incredible wood pellets. We're even exporting our wood pellets. So that fuel to energy would be a great way to add it. And solar, oh my gosh. I lived in Germany for 7 years. And they have less sun than Georgia does. We have an incredible capacity for solar. When I actually lived there, the house, I'm an Army brat, so the house that I lived at has solar panels on it now. And I think that when you have the capacity we have for solar, that could be incredibly enhanced. And then there are emerging technologies coming on the line. Algae, looking at cooking oils. There's so much happening. We've got great technology in our backyard. So there's a lot there.
Christy Schwartz, your turn to ask a question.
Thanks. This one is for Doug Stoner. So what is drawing you to run for the PSC, and how would you work with a majority Republican panel that oversees industries typically described as arcane?
Well, Christy, this won't be the first time I've had to do that. As a former member of the Georgia legislature, both in the House and Senate, of course, I was a majority in the House when I served, but obviously I was in the minority in the Senate. I had to do that. So I had to be able to work with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to solve problems, and that's what I'm known as a problem solver. That's the reason I ran previously for office and served in the House and Senate for 10 years, was I'm a problem solver. I like to build coalitions. And so on that issue, I look forward to that, working with the current commissioners. And that doesn't mean we all agree on the same thing. But to that point, I have that history and background to do that. And what drew me to this is my experience when I served in the state legislature on regulated industries and public utilities. I was the ranking member. And I just saw a lot of things that came through the legislature in the sense of trying to tie the hands of the Public Service Commission and things like that I know I can bring that experience to the PSC. And on top of that, I'm ready to serve on day one because of that experience.
Molly, your question?
When you were in the legislature, you voted against the bill that allowed Georgia Power to charge customers ahead of time for financing for Vogtle, I believe. What would you like to see happen with Vogtle?
Well, to your point, Molly, absolutely. When that bill came through in 2009, I was one of the few folks who stood up and said no, because I didn't agree with the idea, and nor have we ever done that before in Georgia, to where we actually pre-finance and prepay for a power generation facility until it actually produces actual electricity. So I was only one of two members on the committee who voted no. Of course, like I said, I was the ranking member of that committee. And I got a second chance to vote no, which was on the floor of the Senate at the time. And you can imagine there was a lot of pressure to vote yes. So I've been in that crucible and understand how to deal with those issues. And I don't have a problem saying no when I think it's appropriate. As to what I would do on this Public Service Commission, let's just put it this way. You're not going to have a rubber stamp. You're going to have somebody who's prepared to ask the tough questions, who has experiences and been there. And we'll give a fair hearing to people, but you got to prove your case.
Don, would you like to rebut that?
I would actually like to expand on that. I think I would definitely, I know. I'm voting no. I'm saying, no, we've got to stop this right now. We cannot continue to move forward with a blank check to Georgia Power to have an overpriced nuclear that's not even working right now. So I know that I'm going to say no. We've got to relook at this whole thing. We've got to look at how the Vogtle construction management is really going and question every single thing they do. I am just so adamant and so angry every time I see that line on my bill. It's really frustrating.
Okay. Christy, your question.
Okay. This one's for Dawn. You can't make people care, but there are plenty of people who do not know what the Public Service Commission does, nor do they know that Georgia is the only state building a nuclear plant. So how are you going to reach out to people beyond the vocal minority to help them understand what's actually in their electricity bill?
Oh, Christy, that is my heart, right? The question you just asked, how do we make people know what's going on at the Public Service Commission, gets to my essence. I am an advocate, I am a champion, and I am going to go around the state. I'm tired of people sitting in Atlanta and dictating the rest of us, I live in Henry County, out in the state what's going on. And I am so passionate about the energy and environment that I want to go to every single community, and not just on Vogtle, but our coal plants and all of our right-of-ways, everything we need to get out of Atlanta and into the rest of the state. I'm really excited. I've been going around the state myself, meeting people everywhere, and they're happy to talk about it. So what I'm going to do, I'm getting out there to talk with everyone.
Mr. Stoner?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that, and absolutely agree with what Don's saying. I would do exactly the same thing. I think that's been one of the issues that that position has not been an advocate on behalf of consumers of this state. But the other part that I would be able to bring to the table is my ability to go down and talk to my former colleagues at the legislature and on the issues that are important to the consumers of the state, and speak from that position as the Public Service Commissioner. So it isn't just going out and talking to the folks in the state, it's also talking to our elected representatives at the legislature.
Molly Samuel, the question is yours.
Senator Stoner, how would you like to see the PSC involved in rural broadband?
Oh, I think it's a critical piece of infrastructure, not just for individuals, but also for industry. In the days, broadband is now to the point, it's just like not having electricity. If you do not have broadband, your ability to attract businesses and jobs to your community is very limited. So I think the opportunity there has to do with how we allow access to poles. And everybody goes, what's a pole? We're talking about telephone poles, we're talking about basically power poles, and the ability of having access for companies and communities to have access to those poles at a reasonable price so we can bring broadband to rural Georgia. And so that's a critical piece that I would work on as the Public Service Commissioner. And not just at the PSC, but also in the state legislature, because at the end of the day, that's where that decision is going to be made.
Don, would you like to comment on that?
I would. I actually teach online courses. I'm an adjunct professor, and my students need great access, and honestly, they're all over the world. So when they don't have access to broadband or to Wi-Fi and all of the incredible internet that we have, they can't get their work done. I also think that when we look at companies coming to Georgia and we want to give them lots and lots of tax credits, we should be asking them what their investment is in our state as well.
Christy, the next question is yours.
Okay. So the hearings at the PSC for Plant Vogtle are open, and the public is invited to speak before each meeting. Georgia Power maintains that they also have an open and transparent process throughout this construction process. This question is for you, Doug Stoner. Yet, a lot of the information that they file, such as responses to questions from the PSC staff, that information is trade secret, so the public can't see it. Does this concern you, and how would you change that?
Absolutely concerns me. Because basically you're making decisions in private and trying to, in the sense you're making decisions on information that the public doesn't have access to. So I would want to look at that in the sense of what we can do under the state constitution, because there are limits to what we can do as a PSC, but I would want to push that and make that change where we can open that up to the public, to anyone to take a look at, and be able to bring back questions on what's being presented to us as Public Service Commissioner so that we can hear, isn't just us in a room having this discussion and decision making, but the average citizen and different groups can actually have that same information to ask us questions, ask Georgia Power questions about what they're proposing. I mean, no one should be surprised that a power company comes with the best proposal that benefits them. They're a for-profit corporation. Our job as Public Service Commissioners is to represent the rest of the state, meaning the consumers and the ratepayers and the citizens. So I think all that information needs to be available to everyone.
Don, what's your thought on that?
One of the things that has been my principle is affordable and fair means working in the sunshine. Don is not my first name just because my mother gave it to me. It's actually how I operate my entire life, working in the sunshine so that we all have that knowledge. But we also need to make sure that when we do that, there's a funny word called ex parte communication. We are not, as commissioners, sitting in a room privately with anyone, having private email conversations or private phone conversations. We need to do everything in the sunshine. And if there's something that is trade secreted, it better be good. It better not just want to be hidden because there's some nefarious reason. I really, really think that I can look at things with fresh eyes and know where we put it and how open we can be. So in the sunshine is where I want all of our communications to be.
Holly, a question from you.
Ms. Randolph, you all, one of you all will be running against an incumbent in a statewide office for a commission that's not very well known or understood. People, if you tell people you're running for it, they probably say, "What's that?" This is just the primary, though. So how do you set yourself apart?
Again, I'm Dawn Randolph, and I have a 30-year career in public policy and public service, and I've been working in the trenches with those that are most vulnerable and those that are most stigmatized. So I set myself apart because of a master's degree in public administration, and I've served on commissions for both Democrats and Republicans. I worked way back when Senator Sam Nunn, I was a congressional aide, and I've worked on both sides of the aisle. So I set myself apart by being a bridge builder and also very technically competent.
Mr. Stone, we're going to give you an opportunity to respond as well.
Thank you. To that point, I'm a 27-year public servant. I have either been appointed or served in elective office for 27 straight years. Which my wife isn't always happy about, by the way. But all that point being made, what anyone knows about me is how do you solve problems? I'm a problem solver. And it's bringing people together and building coalitions, be it Republican or Democrat or other groups, depending on what you're dealing with. And that's what I'm known as. And that's what I did when I served in the state legislature, was building coalitions. Sometimes my colleagues and certain colleagues on the Republican side were not happy with that, but I did it anyway. And so in the sense of what I bring to the commission is definitely understanding what the Public Service Commission does, how things are done at the legislature.
Mr. Stoner, I'm going to have to interrupt you for time.
I understand. I appreciate that.
That is all the time we have for questions for each candidate. Now, each of you have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Dawn Randolph, you get the first closing statement.
All right, thank you, Drew. I'm an Army brat, and I am tough as nails because I have lived all over the world. I have traveled with my family with a distinguished military career. Both my parents were served in the military. My dad, career, and my mom was a reservist. I have seen some of the incredible things that can happen around the world when you really work together. I have a 30-year career in public policy. I have a master's in public administration. And the great thing is I really want to look at things with fresh eyes. I'm not been in elected office forever, and I bring that fresh ideas and fresh face. I'm a science geek. I absolutely love science. I have lots of great ideas about how we pull together things that will make our energy better. Because when you think about it, the Public Service Commission is the regulator of utilities that create the energy that power our lives. So I hope you'll look at Dawn Randolph, and I'd be honored to have your vote on May 22nd and now.
And Doug Stoner, it's your turn for a closing comment, closing statement.
Thank you, Drew. The Public Service Commission is one of the few elected positions that Georgians interact with every day, be it in your home with your lights, be it warming and cooling our churches, our schools, our businesses. It's the one position that, in the sense that makes decisions that impacts every Georgian on a daily basis. For years, the rights of Georgians have been second to the profits of utility companies. Abundant Solar Energy, Limited. Plant Vogtle, unfinished. Rural broadband, unavailable. And so what I'm going to do as your commissioner is be there to represent the consumers of this state, to be your champion. And how do you know I'm going to do that? Because when I served in the state Senate, I said no to the utilities when they decided they wanted to charge you for a utility, a new power plant, before it actually produced a kilowatt in energy. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be a solid champion on behalf of the Georgians of this state. Thank you.
And that concludes our debate. We'd like to remind you that voting in the primaries will be held on Tuesday, May 22nd. Early voting has begun. Our thanks to the candidate and to our panel of journalists. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging today's debate. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club and all the debates they'll host this primary election season, visit atlantapressclub.org. This debate will be archived there and on Georgia Public Broadcasting's website, gpb.org. I'm Drew Dawson. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series.